Hello everyone. Today I want to talk about my research. The first thing to say is that my research about um, communicative language teaching in English language teaching lessons, anticipated problems and how to overcome them. Uh, by doing this research, I wanted to prepare kind of guidebook for future teachers with or for teachers with less experience through the results. I thought that it will help for future teachers to be prepared beforehand for the problems that ELT lessons may have, and to know about how to solve that problems, how to overcome them, and that overcome that difficulties using different tips, strategies from teachers with teaching background. The main aim of my research is to identify exactly specific common problems that teachers do often face while using CLT methods, then to make teachers with teaching backgrounds with more experience to share their some methods, tips, or strategies that will help to solve that problems or overcome them. The significance of my research is that teachers with a professional background more than 5 years will share their own experience while teaching using CLT method, will share their own experience with teachers who are at the beginning of their like at the beginning of their way to be a good teacher or for future teachers. When I was starting my research, I already had some expectations that communicative language teaching has anticipated problems and all other methods have their anticipated problems while using it in English language teaching lessons. So that is why when I was doing my literature review, I was once again convinced that my guess and my expectations would most likely coincide with reality. That is why it wasn't hard for me to suggest a hypothesis that communicative language teaching in ELT language teaching class has anticipated problems. There was a need to choose participants who may help me to answer for my research questions. Due to this reason, there was a need for people who has teaching experience already, and I have chosen teachers of English languages. In order to choose the right teachers for me, two factors were very important. The first one is that teachers at least must have 5 years of English language teaching experience, and the second one is that they do use CLT in their practice. That is why I have chosen 5 teachers of our university from the Faculty of Pedagogy and Humanitarian Sciences. What about my research methods? In order to achieve all the aims of this research, I thought that the best way to get good results would be qualitative research methods. Aims because while interviews, teachers and participants will feel free and they will have opportunity to share all their thoughts without any limits, and they would answer to all the questions with to all the questions very detailed, and it will help me to get the best results. After that, I decided that my research will be qualitative research. I thought that it will be easier to prepare a questionnaire because it won't take huge amount of time to collect the data and to do the analysis of it. But while I was doing this questionnaire, I faced a lot of difficulties because it was hard to make a questionnaire which will include both identifying the problem and suggesting the solutions for solving that problems. That is why I divided my interview into two. The first part was a questionnaire where teachers will identify the uh, problems of CLT, and the second one is oral interview, conversational interview, where they will share and suggest their tips to overcome and solve that problems. The literature review, unfortunately, there were no identical works with mine, but I was able to find a couple of works with the same hypothesis, like in my work, concern problems in using the CLT methods. These works were aimed at identifying the weaknesses of CLT itself, such as poor grammar, poor reading skills, and so on. I chose two works with similar hypotheses. As I said, the first work belongs to Simhachalam from Jimmy R. Institute of Technology. Conclusion of his work is that communicative language teaching has some elements in its aim, weak elements in its aim and purpose. It gives more preferences to how use the language rather on linguistic knowledges. That is, the method does not focus on correcting errors in pronunciation and grammar. The second researcher is Shu Sui Huan from Taiwan. She involved to her research 74 people, and the main objectives of the study was to identify the problems that teachers face during using the CLT, and this work was very close to mine, but she did quantitative research. While I was doing qualitative research, she did a statistic of what kind of problems CLT will with what kind of problems teacher face during using these methods, and the result was that CLT can lead to a number of problems, such as difficulties in using a linguistically accurate language, and learning language, which is not related to real life, because CLT gives a lot of practice in communication, but it's not always related to real life communication. The main part of my presentation is research stages. The first stage was choosing the topic. I mentioned that I chose the topic because I wanted to help future teachers to be prepared beforehand to the problems that CLT has. So the second one is about developing research questions. After I have chosen my topic, it was easy to prepare research questions. So the next one, because research questions helped me to know exactly what I want to aim and what is the purpose of my research. The next one is literature review and doing hypothesis. After that, the main part was data collection. In data collection, like I was mentioned, it was two parts. First part about questionnaire and the second part about oral conversational interview. The fifth part was about data analysis. It is the most hard of all of the research because it is hard to do conclusion according to the interviews of several people because every teacher had their own thing to share, and these interviews were very informative. That is why it was hard to measure whether this or that is more important or less important. And in conclusion, I want to say that my hypothesis about that CLT has anticipated problems, and it was proven, but it was very hard to measure whether classroom management is harder or developing speaking skills, because the answers were very, very different. That is why the main aim to do kind of guidebook was achieved, I think, because if the future teacher will read the discussion part of this research very carefully, I think it will help them to be prepared beforehand to the anticipated problems, and these tips about solving that problems will help them most probably. Also, I want to mention that I got answers to all my research questions uh, about does COT has anticipated problems and how to overcome them. That is why I think all the things and aims that I wanted to achieve and goals that I wanted to achieve were achieved. What about researchers that will do the same research as mine? I want to suggest to try to do experiments and use mixed methods of data collection, like quantitative and qualitative research, because I think that doing statistic of the common problems and doing the statistic of the most popular problems will be very interesting, and results will be very unexpected. So that is all about my research. But I want to mention one thing, that I didn't talk about all my results of research, because it takes a lot of time to discuss every answer and to do the statistics of every answer, because as I mentioned, there were a lot of information uh, that I took from participants, and that is why I hope that you can read it in my research itself, because I tried to include all the main stuff that participants shared with me. So that's all.